Hello there. Our guest today is a young man that God spoke to in the bathroom. That just shows that God can speak to us anywhere, anytime, and anyhow. It depends if you're listening. And on this program, you'll discover the vision that God gave him and how big, how large the vision has grown. In fact, the vision has outgrown him. I tell people, when you have a vision that is bigger than you, then know that God is in it. Then you will not be depending on your strength to bring the vision to pass. You'll be depending on the one who gave you the vision to enable you, equip you to bring the vision to pass. Because God gives you specific instructions. And if you follow the instructions to the letter, you'll be the better for it. Join us as we go talk to this wonderful, amazing young man who dances for the Lord and has recruited men and women world over to dance like David danced. See you after this time out.
I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine when that day comes and I find myself standing in the sun. I can only imagine when all I would do is forever worship you. I can only imagine. can only imagine when all I would do is forever, forever worship you. I can only imagine.
Hello, Segun. You're welcome to his Word Made Flesh studio.
Thank you.
It's wonderful having you here. I've heard so much about Spirit of David, and every time people talk about Spirit of David, it's always Segun Lawal, Segun Lawal. And I'm told there's a story behind the Spirit of David, because it's spreading like wildfire all over the campuses, and I hear even outside the shores of Nigeria.
It is.
So what is Spirit of David?
Spirit of David is well, it's a gospel dance club, if you can call it that. And it's based on the principles found in the Holy Scriptures, 2 Samuel chapter 6 and verse 14. The idea is to emulate what we see there. We meet a man, King David, and he's very popular, he's very well known, he's highly esteemed, he's feared, he's respected by all. He has proven himself to be a man of war and a great king, a great leader. But he is without the presence of God, represented by the Ark of the Covenant, and therefore his people are without God. And the Ark had been taken away and had been kept with a man called Obed-Edom for about 3 months, and he had prospered. So David felt confident that it can be restored to the people of God. So he's carrying this Ark. There's fanfare, it's like a show, it's like an event. There are cows being killed every 30 paces. There's this, there's that. But David is not singing. It's not a special number. It's not a choir item. It's not a drama. He is dancing. And I believe, as the Lord told me, that dance will be a sign and a symbol of reconciliation. Not because dance itself can save somebody, but because dance itself has the ability to express the depth of a man's soul and his appreciation and his thanksgiving like no other way can. And so it's the same spirit or the same attitude or the same mind or the same heart of David that we emulate in Spirit of David. We use dance to present the gospel, to present hope, to present reconciliation, to present union, and to give people meaning and understanding. And that basically is what Spirit of David is about.
You said something when you were talking. You said there's something God told you. Okay, so how did God tell you? What did he tell you? He said, go ahead, do Spirit of David, get people to dance. How did it come about?
Those words God told me, I realize it's not easy for people to say. They wish that God would talk to them. They believe God talks to them, and perhaps find out later that
It wasn't God.
it wasn't God.
It was their mind.
It was their mind. It was their hopes, their wishes. But God does talk to men. And one of the first things that happened when I got born again was that I was like, Lord, I don't want to read a book. I don't want to hear a tape. I want to hear you. I want to hear you. And I spent weeks in the house doing nothing. I mean, I literally sat down. I wasn't going to force him to talk, but I wasn't going to go anywhere until he did. And I wasn't always like that. I was brought up in a privileged background. I grew up in England, went to a great school. I was a great football player. I mean, I wanted to play soccer. I was just 2 steps away from playing for the British junior team, which was any young boy's dream at that time. And one day my dad says, we're going back to Nigeria. I'm like, where? You know, everybody's impression then of Nigeria or any other African country is just Africa, you know. And so we come back home and there's major adjustments to be done. I mean, my dad's idea of a beach was Calabar, where there was sand everywhere. And I'm thinking...
Not today when you have the Calabar, but then...
Calabar is the most desirous place right now in the country,
Right now, that's
if you
what
ask
I'm
me.
saying.
And for every good reason. I really believe that, but maybe we'll get to that later.
We're not selling Calabar here.
We're not selling Calabar here.
No.
But I believe there was a reason why God took me to Calabar
short,
first. He just cut my life short, or what I thought was my life.
What you thought was your life.
Because a lot of people are living a life they think is their life.
Yeah.
And you know what? I allow them to think it. Because when God stands in the way of your road to Damascus, and says,
definitely the scale must fall.
oh boy,
Yes,
you that thought
yes.
you owned your life.
And then suddenly your life takes a new twist.
So if people are proving, quote unquote, difficult for God to reach, just pray for them. You know, because he did that for me. He interrupted my life. I lived in Calabar, I schooled in Calabar, but I certainly didn't want to do my higher school in Calabar. Both parents worked for the University of Calabar. I didn't want to constantly be watched.
Because the spirit of David thing is very strong in Calabar.
Oh, it is. It
Very,
has to be.
very
That's where,
Now
that's
I
where
know
the pot
why.
was cooked.
Now I know why. Okay.
I mean, it has to be. Calabar is such a unique place. You know, we call it the Canaan city.
So how did the dream start? How did it come? How did it start? How did you receive it?
It came in the bathroom. The most
The
spiritual
bathroom.
place in the world has to be the bathroom.
Okay, let's hear it.
I get into Ife because I don't want to stay in Calabar. So I take JAM twice, so I can get into a good course in Ife. I moved to the quarters where the lecturers stay in my second year after a horrid year in the hostels. Now remember, I grew up in Britain. I never stayed in a hostel. I'm just not used to this place. I'm just not used to what is happening to me. And I go look for a BQ where I can stay by myself. Always running into myself.
But then also people say that you discover God when you're left alone.
And that's what happened. It was at such times I was in my boys' quarter, I was taking a shower, and I hear my name, Segun. So I mean, there are soap suds everywhere. I stop, and I look outside the window because I'm sure somebody's coming to see me. But there's nobody, and so maybe I just heard it. And I hear my name clear as day, just like you would, if someone say UD. I mean, you hear it, right? So wrap a towel, go out, go into my room. I think maybe whoever's come to see me is in my room and there's nobody there. So I'm about to go out and go back, and the Lord says, it is I, and I have work for you to do. Now, I read about that kind of thing happening, when people get a call like that.
That's how I received mine. I have stopped sewing, I have work for you to do.
That's it.
Yes.
And I'm taken to the room. I am told, get 10 sheets of paper. God is an instruction
Specific.
badly. In the book of Genesis, he told Noah to keep a window 18 inches from the top.
Yes.
And that's just ridiculous.
Tells you in specific details what he'll have you do.
You know what I tell people, I say, if Noah had just heard, build me a
Your
boat,
window. Okay.
and he went to build a speedboat, I mean, you and I won't be here today.
That's
So
true.
God is very particular about the particulars.
Yes, it's very specific about
Very
details.
specific. He's a very detailed God. And he tells me 10 sheets of paper, and I want you to write, if you want to be part of a dance school headed by Pastor Segun Lawal. Now, I had not become a pastor yet, so what is he talking about? Dance? I mean, I like dance. I've always liked dance, but like I said, football was my first passion, so what's the big deal with dance? He says, write it and put it there and give it out in fellowship in the evening. Now, I'm almost laughing here. So I tell God, you know what, if there are 30 names, just 30 names on that sheet of paper, I'll start this. Because nobody's going to believe this. So I go to fellowship, I tell the pastor, I've got an announcement to make, and he says, no, I can't do it because it's a special service today. We don't do announcements on special service. I said, even better. It's not going to happen. But he says, but for you, I was walking away, he stops me, he says, Segun, the Lord just slapped me and said, you must be joking. That announcement must be made tonight. Now, this man doesn't do that he's not the kind of person to just say that. So I'm already trembling because I'm like, Flo, are you serious? The Lord told you about this too? What is God doing? So that evening, I give out the 10 sheets of paper. I go collect it from the ushers after, expecting to see
30 names.
or less. Because I'm like, if you give me 30, I see 210 names.
210 names.
210. So if I could have doubted 30 or 50 or 100 or maybe 150, but 210. So I say, okay, what do you want me to do? And that's how it starts. God tells me in the bathroom, start Spirit of David. He tells me, announce a meeting. You've got 210 names. So of course, if you announce a meeting, you expect 210 people. But it was a rainy Friday night. Guess how many people I got?
5.
8, including myself. And I'm thinking, what happened to the 210? Was I seeing things? And God begins to tell me what I should say. That this will be a popular people in the land. They will redefine dance. a generation of Christians never seen before will come out of these ones. They will have an attraction, a light. Men will see their works and give glory to the Father in heaven. And I'm telling these people like I'm talking to thousands. And you do what? This is what, 10 years later?
This is all
Oh my Lord.
it's a fulfillment of every word that the Lord said to you. How do you feel when you sit back and the Spirit of David is all over?
Well, I think I laugh, you know, I really do, because God must be God. You know, there is nothing that qualifies me. I'm not any of that. Many times when I'm introduced as the Pastor Segun Lawal, they always look beyond me. It can't be you. I mean, you don't look the part.
Yeah, the Segun Lawal.
You know, it used to be a bit intimidating. I used to be a bit problematic. I didn't quite like it at first, but then I'm growing used to it, because people always expect, I don't know what
One
they expect,
huge,
like a King Kong or
yes.
something, you know. And they see me, they can't believe it. And I say, well, isn't that just God? He can use anybody to do anything.
What are the pains you went through?
Well, I think one of the first things for us, and it may not seem like such a big deal for many people, but one of the first and the most difficult things was coming to terms with a new life, with a forced life. You know, there are people who perhaps were rich once and then everything crumbles, and you find yourself face to face with a forced environment. And one of the things I personally went through a lot, especially with the aspect of how I got to hear God in my extra year, was failure. You know, especially when I believed I didn't deserve to fail.
But when you look at Spirit of David, you were in the bathroom and God spoke. And you started the process. Okay, He gave you the ability to start the process. And then looking back now, I think it's larger than you.
It is huger, if I can use that term.
So at the time when you were looking at it, the vision looked very small.
Yes.
How do you cope with it today?
I always say this in Spirit of David. It's bad English, but you understand what I mean. Never went where you were not sent. That's what I tell them. More or less, don't go if God didn't tell you. Because people do that a lot. They envision things that God didn't tell them to do.
Or they do things just because they see the other person doing
Or
it and
it's
it
the
works for the other
or
person.
it works for that person. And may have a semblance of success for you. But the only responsibility any human being has is to find out why they're on this planet, and to do that, you have to discover who you are in this life. And Spirit of David has helped hundreds, and I dare say thousands of people discover who they are.
And they discover God in the process.
More importantly.
Because I hear apart from the dancing, there's a lot of ministration going on.
Oh yeah.
Evangelism going on.
Oh yes.
And it keeps, especially in the universities where you have occultism.
Yes.
It's a source of where people can go, the youths can go,
Yeah.
and study the Word of God,
Yeah.
and get filled, and then they can lead by example.
The-
I read
very
a book
true.
once where they said that as a youth, you delight in the things that you do. So that's why you find our youths trying to experiment with a lot of things. And the Spirit of David being in the universities have helped to keep the youths out
You
of
know,
a lot of things.
it's funny, sometimes when you do stuff like this, people tend to think maybe they don't have anything better to do. Or maybe because it's not a pulpit with pews and a 10,000-seater that is not God. Who says that? Who are we to judge who God can use and what age the person should be or how the person should look? And I realized that God is with Spirit of David. He is very much the author and the finisher of our faith. He's one that has started it. He's given us ideas to redefine dance, to give people, like you said, an anchor. We have students running away from the cult. I was once in a cult. I was once a part of the National Association and Sea Dogs Paris Confraternity. And that was in Calabar. And I had not gotten my initiation yet, but they had already more or less drafted me and a good friend of mine. It probably won't be fair for me to call his name yet. He's not yet saved. And we were both drafted at the same time. He stays in the car. I moved to Ife. And within 2 weeks of being in Ife, they approached me. And they say, oh, you're here now. Do we get the transfer papers? You know, do you? And I'm thinking, I've not gone to any church. Yeah, I'm born again, but I'm thinking, okay, next week. During that week, a friend of mine invites me to fellowship. I go to fellowship, and that's how I just kept postponing it. And it's funny, Yudi, because as the years went by, I grew in Christ. He grew in the cult. We're still good friends. I became a pastor, he became a don. I had men that I worked with. He had men that, let's just say, he worked with. And every once in a while, don and pastor will meet.
And what do you say to him?
And he'll say, how's your parish? And I say, how's yours? And he'll say, you serving God? And I say, you killing people? I'm like, hey man, you know that's not the life. He said, leave me, you have your own people. I have my own. I said, they're not my people. Don't go there at all. They're not my people. And we'll talk about it, good friend. And he's always said, Shege, I want to be like you. But I know it's not yet my time. I said, don't worry, I've made a covenant with God. You will not die until you see God, So it's been
Where do you see Spirit of David, say 5 years from now?
Oof. We really want people. I know this sounds funny, but when you think dance, to think Spirit of David. And in thinking Spirit of David, you think God. The Bible says, let men see your good works and give glory to the Father. So give them something to give God glory for.
Do you still go back to God from time to time when you don't understand certain things? Or you go back to him and say, Lord, this vision is spreading like wildfire. Where do I go from here? What do I do now? And wait for more instructions.
I go back to God so often, it's like I don't leave him with those things. I'm like, God, I'm not this person everybody thinks I am. Don't disgrace me. I'm like, it's getting bigger, And what do I
sometimes you're afraid if you can handle it.
Yeah.
Are you ever afraid that you can?
Every time. I'm like, look, some people, I don't know, I tell them, I'm not made of steel. You cut me, I bleed. Punch me, I'll wince. If I don't punch you back, that is. But the truth is that...
I'm sure you will. Or would you be preaching to other people?
We are past the eye for the eye era, haven't we? Yeah, that's it. I have to show them the other side. I think it's good to know it's not you.
Yes.
It better keep you humble. Because
that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Because once pride takes over, you lose
it. You're done.
You lose
it. God told me something clearly, Yudi. He said, never forget the day you got saved. Because that's what will keep you. Never forget, no matter what happens, if today I roll up in a big car and I'm known all over the place and they're preaching engagements up and down, that's not the point. That doesn't trip me in the least. What I'm doing now is good. Sitting, talking with you, hoping that somebody will hear and say, look, my life is not a mess up after all. I'm not a failure, that God talks to men, therefore he can talk to me, and I can do something with my life. I can be a part of something worthwhile. That's really what we should all be living for. That's what matters in this world. I mean, you were talking to me earlier about your story, and we will wait for it.
Don't even go there.
We will wait for
my
it.
story.
We will wait for it.
Segun, thank you very much for coming on this program. And this brings me to a story that I read somewhere about Mahatma Gandhi. And that after all the applause in United Nations, everywhere he went, the streets of India, he always went back to that loom where he wove the white cloth he tied. And that kept him grounded because he never lost touch with the people where he came from. And God will keep you grounded, and he will always give you a word.
Amen.
Every day, every time. The Bible says you'll hear that word that says this is the way, walk in it. Whenever you turn to the left or to the right. And to the viewers there, thank you. And whatever word God has given to you, no matter how stupid, sometimes it could look stupid and silly. Imagine God telling somebody to dance. Dance. Well, you listen to him because he knows where he's taking you to. No matter the trials, which I tell people today, what keeps me grounded is the fact that whatever the situation, no matter how bad, how terrible, it will work out for my own good. Until I come your way again, remain blessed.
Nobody can stop me, nobody can break me, nobody can beat me.